Red wave rising.
We're going to see a red tsunami.
It's going to look more like Deep Impact, the tsunami at the end, but colored red.
These midterms look nothing like the giant tsunami wave at the end of Deep Impact, a Spielberg movie about rising oceans and a huge comet, which caused that memorably giant wave, one of many references Republicans and some pundits have made to the coming red wave. Wow, that's a big wave there, huh? Well, that wave and nothing like it ever hit shore politically this week. The numbers came in, and even by late Tuesday night, as Kornacki and elections officials counted the numbers, it became clear Republicans blew it. They blew the kind of midterm opening that has historically won opposition parties 50 or 60 seats in other years like this. The Republican Party now hopes to just crack double digits. Control of Congress has not yet been called. Many winnable seats for Republicans went blue, especially in races where a reasonable inflation-talking challenger might have won, but Republicans were offering something very different: election-denying MAGA extremists. And far from the comet-induced tsunami, the nature comparison here might very well be a Republican Party that politically ate itself, like the short-tailed cricket known for devouring its own wings. Gross. The party ate its own moderates, its own members who oppose insurrectionists, who oppose political violence. That became something of a controversy on the right if you just rebuked the seditionists that tried to overthrow the government for Trump. But that's what most Americans believe. So they went in, the Republicans, and they ate their own chances in areas that were not already just completely safe, red MAGA seats. Democrats outperformed history and the economic patterns, but they also outperformed the so-called expectations. Michael Moore and I discussed this briefly at the top of the show. He didn't know I was preparing this, but the expectations brings us to our special report for you right now. And we think it's a doozy. Because some of the discredited D.C. expectations were not just based on, say, the typical problems with worthless predictions. They also came from gullibly echoing a misleading, basically corrupt disinformation campaign peddled by right-wing operatives designed to stoke expectations and use junk numbers to prop up these extreme right-wing candidates, to make them seem more mainstream by virtue of their supposed polling advantage. A couple examples. Take election denier Don Bolduc, running for Senate in New Hampshire, which ain't Florida. Forecasters bumped his race up to a toss-up, which stoked attention for him and donations for him. But it didn't come to pass. He lost to a mainstream Democrat there by 10 points. Republican Joe O'Dea rode those same tossed-up headlines that said he was posing a tough challenge to the Democratic incumbent, Bennett. Well, there wasn't much to toss in the air and count when the votes came in. Another double-digit Republican loss this week. Now, those candidates got pundits to say over and over that they looked better than their reality. And then they would fundraise off those claims. And this is a trend. Poll averages repeatedly overstating Republican support, as the Journal reports, including sources that claim to aggregate polls but may actually put a finger on the scale, like Real Clear Politics. Democrats did about 3 points better than the final poll averages calculated by RCP in the top 8 races, the Journal reports. Now, there's a lot going on in the nation right now. You might say, Ari, this sounds like some backroom, inside baseball type stuff. Let me tell you why it's not. The perception and expectation about a campaign can shape reality. Donors may flock or bolt based on whether a campaign is deemed by these insiders and these pundits, et cetera, to have a shot. And then media outlets which focus on silly horse race or poll coverage reinforce that dynamic. Now, not The Beat. You won't see us quoting Real Clear polling averages at all this past year. That's the same site which also said Republicans would take the Senate with 54 seats. And then that was fanned by pundits and people on the right. See all of that online, everyone going, oh, look what's going to happen, red wave. These receipts matter now because we have more facts now that voting is done. That site's founder, though, dutifully took this claimed polling information back then to tout the red wave on Fox.
The general consensus is, and all the data is telling us, that a Republican wave is building across the country. The generic congressional ballot, you see the movement in the Senate races, you see the movement in the House races and the governor's races.
That's the narrative. On the eve of the election, Fox Primetime was still citing that same source, Real Clear Politics, for their polling averages, pushing a red wave. The Senate projections, all of it to keep up the hype.
The polls show Democrats sinking and Republicans rising. Democrats blew every lead they had. Smart Money says Republicans take the Senate, winning the majority by 53 seats to 47. That's what Real Clear has it at right now. A wave like this, we should know that night, basically, who won the Senate and the House.
Yeah, if it was that big a wave, it would all be decided that night. That's last Tuesday. You notice he had a banner there that told everyone to, quote, shut up, and the Democrats blew it, and all of that future tense, red wavy stuff. Didn't work out that way. The Senate is close no matter what. It's still not decided as of Tuesday night. That same poll site, by the way, was once considered a kind of go-to source for election junkies that then morphed rightward and pro-Trump. The New York Times reporting nonpartisan experts have debunked these types of sketchy polls in the past, and that this cycle, polling from partisan outfits, usually Republican, were flooding the zone. I want to tell you, we asked Real Clear Politics for a response. They haven't replied. The campaign veterans say this is about way more than just an unreliable poll. It's a wider right-wing effort that is trying to confuse and trick you and a lot of other people, which is why learning about it can inoculate you against it. An effort to launder something that matters a heck of a lot more than polls. An unpopular, Trump-saddled Republican brand that is consistently rejected when people actually vote by creating this fake appearance of support. Obama campaign veteran and friend of the beat, Che Komanduri, says this is all a deliberate strategy by Republicans to use junk polling to move the polling average and change the narrative. Now, the goal is not to inflate expectations that then can't be delivered. The goal is to work the refs so that people who matter think Republicans have more support than they do, act like that, depress Democratic enthusiasm with this drumbeat of inevitability that the Congress would be lost anyway, the red wave is coming. You heard how they tried to play you with that on Fox. And we dug more into the archives to how it goes from Fox out to the wider media.
Republicans are heading into the final 5 days of the campaign with the wind at their backs.
The red wave is coming. Republicans are going to win the midterms.
Forget red wave. I'm rooting for a red tsunami.
The politicos with whom I spoke today all agree, as of now, a modest red wave, at the very least, seems to be building.
The short answer is it's going to look good for Republicans. The longer answer is it's going to look very good for them.
Signs of a red wave are kind of getting bigger than ever, but not everyone in the media wants to hear that.
It wasn't looking like a red wave earlier in August, and now it looks like a tsunami.
The point there is not that multiple news channels over there echo Fox and sound similar as they make those predictions that have been proven false. That's just a fact. They can deal with that. It's bigger than the media or polls. This is a larger effort to hack your mind and the discourse and shape the ultimate turnout for the results in our democracy itself. It is legal, to be sure, but it is also misleading with real consequences. And it's interesting because remember, I was discussing this at this table with Rachel over the past 2 nights. If you really have a huge bankable lead, you don't need to hype it. You just turn your voters out and win. But so many Republican leaders know their slate of MAGA candidates lately is very weak. Mitch McConnell warned about low-quality candidates for that reason. So Republicans concluded they needed to inflate their perceived support in the hopes that that might then create more support than they actually have. Just like Donald Trump, when he was a candidate in 2016, benefited from European-sourced fake content farms pushing something that was then called fake news. He benefited from that on Facebook. Then he tried to turn that term memorably on his opponents. A candidate who can't really win or fill an auditorium is like a singer who can't really sell out the stadium. So they start giving out free seats to look popular and trick people into thinking those are actual ticket holders, supporters. Or these days, that's what some artists do to buy fake streams online to create the appearance of fake listeners. It's like how J. Cole explained with 21. How many faking they streams? A lot. Getting they plays from machines? A lot. I can see behind the smoke and mirrors They ain't really as big as they seem. Well, if you remix J. Cole for these midterms, how many faking their polls? A lot. Capping about a red wave? A lot. How many pollsters were wrong? A lot. How many are in on the trick, tricking you, even though they failed on Tuesday? That's the big question. Hey, I'm Ari Melber. Thanks for watching The Beat. I wanted to let you know I'm writing a foreword to the January 6th committee's full report, which is coming out soon from HarperCollins. You can go pre-order the book right now, and it'll come to you first when the report comes out in the fall or whenever the government releases it. Just search Melber Jan 6th on Amazon or your favorite independent book site and click pre-order. You'll be the first to get both the report and my new piece on the coup conspiracy. You can also go to melberbook.com and order it there.